All right, so I was not able to repeat as server first on my server ATH. That went to an orc warrior named Gish, but I did manage realm first mage and gnome, and here's how I did it. And I'll highlight a few of the key strategies or tricks I use. There's 4 or 5 of them that are pretty good. Now, the saddest part of all this is that I did stream the entire run on YouTube, not Twitch, and I learned the painful lesson that YouTube no longer archives streams over 12 hours. So this had worked perfectly on my 60 to 70 run, but for this one, the stream is gone. Unless someone out there has the dad that works at YouTube, like we all seem to have for Blizzard, and can hook me up. So anyway, first off, quest prep. I started with that, and like before, I had a spreadsheet that I put together from lists on Wowhead. Now I was leveling on my main, so I had done some quests, but I still had quite a few left undone. So as an example, I had Mag's Head to turn in, I had the Vials of Eternity, I had the Ring turn-ins for High Gel Rep, and so on. So I got to give a lot of credit to Rested XP. Those folks make an amazing leveling guide, and they also had a really extensive quest prep guide. So the vast majority of my prep that I did and my turn-in route came from their guide, with a few additional quests and modifications that I threw in. So all in all, I had 92 quests for 1,175,000 XP. Now, and here was special tactic number 1. If you followed the Rested XP guide, or what most folks were planning on doing, you turned in all of your quests at the get-go to get a jump on getting to level 71. And in some cases, you got straight through to 71 and then were ahead of the competition quick. But my whole strategy centered on dungeon grinding and managing my 5 lockouts per hour. So except for 2 quests that were out in the middle of nowhere up in Ghostlands, I went straight for my lockout cap on dungeons before turning in quests, and then only turned in quests while my lockouts were expiring. So here was the run. The day before, I got the Brewfest Buff, which gives 2 hours of 10% additional XP, and I went and got 3 Zanza pots for extra speed. And it's 3 because you drink 1, you have 1 in your inventory, and then you can actually destroy 1 and restore it so it's in your mailbox. I started off, like I said, in Ghostlands. Our XP bars popped up a few minutes before 3 p.m. local time, turned in 2 quests for 38k XP, and then Hearth to Menethil, and was able to catch the first boat to Howling Fjord. By the way, the dock with people waiting for that first boat was just totally nuts. I brought with me an alt on that boat, and this was sort of special tactic number 2. It's kind of minor, but I leveled a paladin alt to 20 and brought him with me and parked him at the Utgard Keep instance portal so that I'd always have kings on me for my Utgard Keep runs. So in addition to that, I had Zanza, I had pretty much full buffs, all of which is total overkill for this run. You don't need it, but my entire strategy centered on not dying. I wanted to preserve that Brewfest buff, preserve my Zanzas, and be as efficient as possible. So I had full food buffs, oils. I used a scroll of protection. I would drink an iron shield potion to up my armor so that my mana shield could withstand 1 whole hit from these mobs while I was level 70 to prevent being dazed, which is that rare run ender in UK. So anyway, I had it in. I did my 5 lockouts, and I could make another video on this, but I do what folks call the 2-pull. I pulled the circular room by itself, then I pulled the Drake room separately, and that was it. Later on, I added the 3rd pull, which is 7 mobs in the back room with the boss, but not until I was level 72 to make that more doable. So I got done with my 5 UK instances around 25 minutes in, confirmed I was locked, and then I proceeded to probably my biggest trick of the entire run, which was I had 2 characters set up at the stone in slave pens, and I summoned myself there for a run of heroic slave pens. And here was the trick. For some reason, switching to a heroic instance allows you to get a 6th run in per hour, which is huge. So I had practiced slave pens an absolute ton. I was a mage booster during TBC. It's a touchy run and it's easy to die. So I killed the boss ahead of time to have access to more mobs, but was able to get it done many times throughout the night. And I could kill roughly 60 mobs in that first pull, and then an additional 25 or so that in a second pull that I added later on. So it's 80 to 85 mobs for around 200k XP. And except for my first run, which I totally screwed myself by leaving my 70 alt logged into the instance, which boosted him and stole some of my XP. But anyway, I was able to do it, like I said, successfully pretty much every hour. I was lucky to have dual spec now because Utgard Keep is fire and slave pens is frost, so I was swapping spec constantly. So after slave pens, I ported to Shattrath and I did my quest turn-ins all over Outland. And I won't go through of all what I turned in, but it was extensive quest turn-ins all over the map. In many cases, I was turning in multiple at the same NPC super quickly. A good example was turning in, again, all 4 rep levels of the High Jaw Ring quest, which is 60k XP. I mentioned Mag's Head. I turned in the Verdant Sphere from killing KT in Tempest Keep. I had the PvP daily done. I had the heroic dungeon daily done. Many quests that were long chains. I had lots of things in my inventory that started a quest that you could accept and then just turn in right away without using up a quest log spot. So I would do all those quest turn-ins until my instant lockout expired, at which point I would hearth back to Valgard, go right in for 5 more Utgard Keep runs, then get a summon to Slave Pens, 1 run there, then port right back to Shat and resume my quest turn-ins. So I did that until my prepped quest turn-ins were done. At that point, it was around 3 hours in, and I hit 72. So I expanded my dungeon grinding strategy so that my rotation of 6 instances would take about the entire hour. So for EUK, most folks on the Mage Discord were talking about doing 3 separate pulls, which had to do with the way XP is granted and decays if you pull in too many or take too long. And there was variations on doing 2 in 1 or other things, but I kept them separate. And then at 72, I added in that 3rd pull to the back room. Similarly, slave pens had been split up recently into 2 halves. You can't pull that whole instance anymore. The back half is separate from the front. So I added that back half section to my rotation as well, increasing the time it took, but the XP as well. So outside of that, if I finished my instance lockouts early in the hour I was waiting, I would either go train spells. I ran to Stranglethorn Vale a couple of times to refresh my Zanza. I might check the auction house for Glyph of Living Bomb, which never showed up. And then one more special trick at exactly 6:15 p.m., so 3 hours after launch, and then again at 6:15 a.m. the next day, I hearthed to Ironforge and picked up the Brewfest Buff for another 2 hours of 10% additional XP, and that was definitely worth it for just a few minutes of abusing the Mage Portal ability. So anyway, I did that I did all of that till about 2 in the afternoon the next day when I hit 79, at which point the level 70s in Utgard Keep and Slave Pens go gray and no longer give XP. So I moved to questing and using Rested XP's Ice Ground section, which I did really well for about 60% of the level. And then I got stuck, frankly, on just something stupid, which required a random drop from these mobs up around Onslaught Harbor in Ice Crown, and it just wouldn't drop, and I tried to skip it, but then I got into like quest turn in hell with rested XP where I was not able to figure out what I could do and what I couldn't and accept quests. And at this stage I was sort of panicking a bit because I knew the second place mage was right behind me. He seemed to be hitting each level maybe 4 or 5 bars behind me. And here I was just not getting XP, just fumbling around with quests that I couldn't figure out or accept. So I decided to go back to my roots. As a degenerate mage AoE farmer, I went right to this spot in Ice Crown and just grinded out the last 40% or so on mobs. And this was actually my plan for 79 all along, but I decided late in the process to go with quest turn-in. But you land here, you round up 22 or 23 mobs and just grind them all down. And coincidentally, this was the spot that I hit 80 on my first mage back in 2007. I actually made a video of farming that. That was probably my first ever YouTube video that's still up here on YouTube. So did that for another hour or so, dinged it around 5 p.m., pretty much exactly 26 hours after launch, which coincidentally was like the same amount of time that it took me to get to 70 from 60 to 70. So I got the achievement for Realm First Mage and then Realm First Gnome, which was a surprise. Like I said, the stream is gone, but I did go through my screenshots. I think I was 5th or 6th overall, 80. I got a deluge of cool grats whispers and then a few folks telling me to get a life, that I was a total loser. So at any rate, I played for another 30 minutes or so, and at that point I had been awake since 8 a.m. on launch day, so like 34 35 hours. Went and had a little snack, then slept for 13 hours straight. So anyway, that's the story of Realm First Mage on ATS. Thanks a lot for watching.